Grand Canyon National Park in northern Arizona is one of the world's great scenic treasures. This place is a marvel of nature, a geological wonder with no rival on Earth. If the name seems ordinary, if the word grand is overused, here its real meaning is disclosed on all sides. This is America's most popular western park. People come here from all over the world to view its sweeping vistas, its colorful towers and buttes, its awe-inspiring vastness. There can be gentle moments here, too, when the canyon seems to belong to you and the wind alone. Purely from the standpoint of statistics, Grand Canyon is immense. It measures over 270 miles in length. At its widest point, it is as much as 18 miles across from south rim to north rim. In places, its depth is more than a mile. The colors of the entire rainbow are here, and they shift constantly, imperceptibly during the day as the sun moves across the sky. Weather, too, alters the canyon's colors and varies the visual impressions it creates. Once you start to focus on the rock formations, their shapes and details, it somehow seems easier to view the canyon as even more than splendid scenery. Here at the canyon, the National Park Service has the mission of protecting nature's gift for future generations.
The National Park Service mission, no matter where you are in the United States, is to preserve the very best of what we have in the United States, and also to allow folks to actually get out and enjoy these incredible resources that are here. At the Grand Canyon, the resource obviously is this incredible spectacle that we have that's the Grand Canyon, but it's also the story of Native American habitation here for 10,000 years. It's the story of wildlife recovery like the condors coming back here, and how do we preserve that and protect it so that other generations, my children and your children, can actually come back here and enjoy this incredible story that's the Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon is something like an open chapter in a textbook on geology. The story of its creation is complex, and scientists are still looking for answers to many questions. Viewed from either rim, among the most conspicuous features are the continuous horizontal bands of rock, or strata. The formation of these strata required a far longer period of time than the actual creation of Grand Canyon itself. The upper layers on the walls are the youngest rock, and they grow progressively older with depth. The oldest exposed stratum here is the hard black rock of the inner gorge.
The Grand Canyon's special because when you look at it, it allows you to actually understand time. Those bottom layers of the Grand Canyon, 1.8 billion years old. And that's incomprehensible, but you see it here at the Grand Canyon. You look down and you can just trace back through time.
The full geological story of the canyon covers almost unimaginable lengths of time. Over the past 2 billion years, this area was covered repeatedly by ancient seas. Through millions upon millions of years, these sediments, sand, silt, and mud, built up in layers of different thicknesses and gradually changed into diverse types of rock. Now, the stage is set, so to speak, for the creation of Grand Canyon. This required a far shorter period of time, about the past 4 million years. Long after the last ocean receded, a plateau formed here. The ancestral Colorado River and its branches began cutting into the upper rock strata. Two basic geological actions were at work simultaneously. First, powerful forces within the earth pushed the plateau upward. And second, at the same time, the erosive action of flowing water, carrying vast amounts of mud, sand, and gravel, cut the canyon deeper and deeper. In a sense, the river eroded away the rock strata as the plateau rose against it. The canyon was steadily widened by wind, rain, and chemical erosion. These actions are still continuing today. For most visitors, the South Rim is the focal point of the Grand Canyon experience. At Grand Canyon Village, historic structures from a bygone era merge into the panoramic spectacle that has drawn visitors for over 100 years. We'll begin our journey at Canyon View Information Plaza at the park's Visitor Center, a great place to get oriented to the rim. Visitors can get a primer on subjects like the geology and history of the canyon, thanks to the exhibits here. The Visitor Center is at Mather Point. For many visitors, Mather Point is the spot where they first take in the majesty that is the Grand Canyon. Every morning, dozens of visitors gather at the point to experience the sunrise over the canyon. From Mather Point, hikers and walkers can explore the 12-mile-long Rim Trail. It runs from just east of Mather Point all the way west to Hermit's Rest. This flat, easy trail literally has some of the most spectacular views in the world. The Trail of Time is a new kind of exhibit along the Rim Trail, a walking timeline that helps visitors to ponder, explore, and understand the magnitude of geologic time and the stories encoded in the Grand Canyon's rock layers and landscapes. The trail runs between Park Service headquarters and the Yavapai Geology Museum at Yavapai Point. At the Yavapai Geology Museum, three-dimensional models, powerful photographs, and exhibits all allow park visitors to see and understand the complicated geologic story of the canyon. Watch for national park rangers giving interpretive talks. They can open your eyes to some of the wonders that the canyon has to offer.
The water would come in and it would submerge this area, and then the earth would get colder, and then the water would go out. And so it would leave all these different types of sediment, bringing in all that sand, all that different rock from lots of different places.
From the village, scenic drives lead east and west along the rim. Along the east rim, a series of overlooks, all located on rocky points jutting out into the canyon, give panoramic views that are breathtaking in scope. Yaqui Point, Grand View Point, Lippin Point, not far from the eastern boundary of the park is Desert View, the last overlook on East Rim Drive. The dramatic watchtower dominates the scene. Mary Coulter, one of Grand Canyon's most famous architects, built this impressive structure from local stone. Inside, a spiral staircase decorated with Hopi designs leads up to the Hopi Room. On the walls, authentic ceremonial sand paintings are shown. Desert View, close to the park's east entrance, may be either the introduction or the finale to any visit. A visitor need spend only a very short time here to discover that the full canyon story is not simply one of bright colors and sun-drenched cliffs. Grand Canyon can also be a brooding landscape, and this quality is among its greatest charms. Early explorer artists like Thomas Moran saw and painted the canyon as a blend of profound atmospheric shadows and vivid sunlight, majestic and stately. But sun and clouds create an infinitely varied ambience. Canyon moods are rarely somber for long. Sometimes the place is filled with high spirits. Cloud shadows dancing up and down the cliffs and buttes present a scene so enchanting, it's nearly hypnotic. From the village, visitors can board one of the free shuttle buses to explore 8-mile-long West Rim Drive. Maricopa Point is the first point on the West Rim. Powell Point is named for Major John Wesley Powell, who led the first rafting expedition down the canyon in 1869. The Powell Memorial is here, honoring their achievements. It provides a fine view of a stretch of the Colorado River, a hint of the unimaginable dangers that he and his teams confronted. The overlook at Hopi Point offers some classic canyon views. Mary Coulter built Hermit's Rest in 1914 to look like an old miner's cabin, complete with a front porch and giant fireplace. The Colorado River is in sight from several overlooks on both West and East Rim drives. Its geological significance can be appreciated from above, but what's it like up close? Rafting on the Colorado River in Grand Canyon connects you directly with the river, the canyon's lifeblood. Its intensity can be felt. Whitewater trips last from 3 days to 3 weeks. There are trips for every taste and skill. All afford a memorable river-level experience that adds a new dimension to the visitor's perception of the canyon. It doesn't take long for those new to the river to discover that the dominant direction here is up. Rafting the entire river canyon from Lee's Ferry to Diamond Creek Takeout is 225 miles. Stopping for lunch along one of the riverbanks is exciting in itself. If the fun of rafting hasn't created an appetite, surely the campsite setting at Redwall Cavern will. It's a pleasure just to pull off the rafting gear and relax after making camp for the night. Next morning, while most of the canyon is still in shade, the party is already keyed up for the surprises ahead. New rafters learn quickly that, in Grand Canyon at least, the Colorado is seldom glassy smooth for very long. Rafters get to experience the full power of the Colorado River, the tool that carved the canyon. Whitewater isn't the only fun to be found on a rafting trip. There's a chance to see natural beauties that are missed by those who remain on the rim. Rafters can enjoy swimming in the sapphire blue water of the Little Colorado River, a tributary of the Colorado. Lacey's Paradise is an oasis with a waterfall that springs from the canyon wall. It's a favorite spot for rafters. In exploring some of the secret side canyons and creeks, there's little time to consider the completely different perspective that earlier river explorers may have had in similar places. Even so, there's still the overwhelming conviction that this, too, is truly an extraordinary adventure. Grand Canyon developed into the intensely popular national park it is today because it's one of Earth's supreme natural wonders. But public interest had to have a beginning, a person or event that attracted attention to this place. Here, as it happens, both the person and the event are inseparably linked in American history, and their extraordinary story takes us back to the Colorado River. John Wesley Powell had been a Union officer in the Civil War and was wounded so severely that his right arm had to be amputated. In 1869, he and a small group of brave men made the first known boat trip through Grand Canyon. Before Powell, no white man had ever returned from a trip on the Colorado River. Powell's purpose was to make a scientific survey of the canyons of the Green and Colorado rivers. This was unknown country then, an empty area on contemporary maps. The Powell expedition set out from the Union Pacific's Green River Station in Wyoming Territory on May 24, 1869. In describing an area within the present park, Powell wrote, "Once more the walls close in, and we find ourselves in a narrow gorge, the water again filling the channel and being very swift." There were calmer stretches of river between the rapids, and the party found sandy banks where they could pull their boats ashore. The men set up camp, ate sparingly from their dwindling food supply, and rested from their work of fighting the angry waters. At several points, Powell and some of his team climbed up the rugged rock walls to the canyon rim. This was not an easy task for a man with one arm. 3 of the party, exhausted and fearing unknown terrors yet to come, left the group. The 3 men vanished without a trace. Powell persevered in his scientific studies, making detailed measurements of elevations and distances and analyzing the vast array of geologic data he assembled. In his publications later, his gift for elegant wording and his respect for the wonders of the canyon appear on every page. "The traveler on the brink," he wrote, "looks from afar and is overwhelmed with the sublimity of massive forms. The traveler among the gorges stands in the presence of awful mysteries, profound, solemn." Both on his first river expedition and on a second, shorter canyon survey 3 years later, Powell visited a number of the Indian villages of the area. He learned a great deal about the surrounding country, but it was the mystery of the canyon and the river that led them on. Powell and his men were on their own. Instinct and courage were their only guides. John Hillers was one of the photographers who accompanied Powell on his second expedition. In spite of heavy equipment and the necessity of chemically coating their own glass photographic plates, these artists recorded scenes of astonishing beauty and significance. Major Powell's study of the canyon geology was intense and unending. He had an armchair rigged in one boat. During stretches of calm water, this provided a suitably high perch for observation and note-taking. The first Powell survey covered over 1,000 miles of the Green and Colorado rivers. The men endured 95 days of peril. The major and both popular and scientific accounts of his expeditions described peoples and scenes that outsiders had never dreamed of. His exciting narratives are among the classics of American exploration and adventure. Major Powell's direct descendants are today's whitewater travelers. He would surely envy them for their equipment, appreciate their skill, and he'd salute their adventurous spirit. Major Powell's writings had a completely unforeseen effect. They aroused wide popular interest in a natural marvel that was virtually inaccessible. But for as long as 11,000 years ago, Grand Canyon had been occupied by early Indian peoples. Major Powell was not the first outsider to come here. Centuries earlier, other newcomers had begun to trickle in. In 1540, part of the Spanish Coronado expedition, hunting for gold, were the first Europeans known to have seen the canyon. In 1857, the United States government sent an overland reconnaissance expedition here, and the first prospectors known to have entered Grand Canyon came in 1864. Most found little of value. However, following Major Powell's books about his river trips, the stream of canyon visitors began. Photographers learned early that they could make money selling pictures of the Indians of the area. Many were photographed, usually in exchange for a small fee. Often they were dressed and posed at the photographer's directions. Small tourist accommodations had been available before the Bright Angel Hotel opened in 1898. Despite the crowd here, the number of visitors still was not large. All that changed 3 years later in 1901 with the coming of the Grand Canyon Railroad. The work of laying the tracks from the main line at Williams to Grand Canyon was begun by the Santa Fe Railway in the late 1890s, and the first passenger train arrived at the South Rim in 1901. These were lucky people indeed. Roads to the canyon were virtually impassable, although horse-drawn coaches were sometimes able to make the trek. By 1902, automobiles managed to reach the South Rim, and this one drove perilously close to it. But it was the coming of the railroad that popularized the Grand Canyon. Visitors arrived in rapidly increasing numbers, and within a few years, the Santa Fe had an entire fleet of trains here to cater to the travel pleasures of canyon sightseers. But as the 20th century advanced, cars and tour buses crowded the park's well-paved roads, and the Santa Fe Railway was forced to discontinue passenger operations here in 1968. Fortunately, America's interest in the grand tradition of trains reawakened. Entrepreneurs bought the Grand Canyon line in 1989. Today, the Grand Canyon Railway carries passengers to the canyon from the famous old town of Williams, a distance of about 65 miles. In the past century or so, the countryside between Williams and Grand Canyon has changed very little along the route of the railway. The scenery is high desert scrub near the start of the trip. Soon, we've climbed higher, and conifer trees crowd close. Trains on the Grand Canyon Railway are still easy prey for train robbers 100 years later. Today, the arrival of the train at the El Tovar Hotel and Grand Canyon Depot reunites two principal elements in the early history of the village. Much has changed around these old favorites. With the advent of the Santa Fe Railway in 1901, plans for a first-class hotel at the canyon were begun. The El Tovar, designed along the lines of an alpine lodge, opened in 1905. The Fred Harvey Company, the railway's sole concessionaire, assumed its operation. The hotel quickly became an attraction in itself, and the lobby was a popular and famous gathering place for visitors. Today, you can still enjoy the rustic charm of one of the most unique hotels in America.
You know, for most folks that look at this, this is what we call parkitecture. It's a style of architecture that you'd see in many of our different national parks. We need to remember though, when it was built to cater to an audience that we don't necessarily see so much here today, a much more wealthy, upper class group of people that were coming here that may have actually years before instead gone to England or France or to Switzerland. So the El Tovar is designed as a Norwegian hunting lodge here on the side of the Grand Canyon. So it sticks out a little bit. You're trying to figure out, where's this architecture coming from? Well, it comes from a century ago when the folks that were coming out here were actually expecting something like that.
Opposite the hotel is Hopi House, one of the most interesting and striking attractions on the South Rim. This celebrated structure is a special favorite with visitors, and not only because of its crafts and its picturesque architecture.
You know, when Mary Coulter designed that, she was creating, you know, an imaginary type of Hopi house. She went around the desert Southwest looking at different structures that Native Americans had made, and this was her idea of what a house would be that would be appropriate. You'll never find something like this at an archaeological site anywhere. It's kind of a combination of a whole bunch of different things that she saw when she was exploring the area, trying to come up with the idea for Hopi House. One of the things that was distinctive about Mary Jane Coulter is that the architecture she created was able to actually blend in with the landscape. You know, you think about the El Tovar, it's striking. It's a Norwegian hunting lodge, but all of her structures, they blend in very, very well.
Hopi House was designed by Mary Coulter, architect for the Fred Harvey Company. Her professional ideology was to fashion buildings that reflected local cultures and landscapes. Her inspiration was the ancient Hopi village of Oraibi, the oldest continuously inhabited settlement in the United States. Hopi House opened in 1902, one of the first curio shops at the canyon. A number of village buildings have long histories. Few go back farther than that of the Kolb Studio. Ellsworth and Emery Kolb, brothers from Pennsylvania, began photographing Grand Canyon in the early 1900s. They went to great lengths and heights to shoot exciting pictures using a bulky Graflex camera. By 1904, they had built a tiny studio near the head of Bright Angel Trail. They took pictures of the mule riders as the group started down into the canyon and had them ready to sell when the same trip returned. The Kolbs also made movies of the Grand Canyon and the river. Few people had so far duplicated Major Powell's exploits on the Colorado. But by 1911, the dauntless Kolbs made their first of many boat trips through the canyon, shooting movies of the gorge and the wild whitewater rapids. The dangers were as real for the Kolbs as they'd been for Powell, and when their movies were shown back east, audiences gasped at the ferocity of the river. The Kolbs contributed greatly to the growing public interest in Grand Canyon. Their studio was expanded to include an auditorium. Here, their dramatic river movie was shown daily, personally narrated by Emery Kolb. Today, from near the trailhead, the studio looks much like the original, but seen from across the nearby arm of the canyon, it's huge. It now includes a bookstore, exhibit hall, and gallery. Nearby, another of Mary Coulter's harmonious designs blends into the surrounding rock. Lookout Studio. Clinging to an outstanding point on the rim, this is one of the best places to observe the rare and endangered California condor. The condor is the largest bird in North America, and its 9-foot wingspan lets it soar effortlessly from thermal to thermal. Bright Angel Lodge, another Mary Coulter designed structure, sits just a few feet from the rim and has always been a favorite place to stay. It is a registered National Historic Landmark and its rooms and cabins have a rustic character from a simpler time. Over the years, as the village has steadily grown, it has hosted many famous guests. Perhaps it was President Theodore Roosevelt's visits that were most significant for the canyon, and indeed for the entire national park system. Teddy was an avid outdoorsman and conservationist. Leading a trip on a canyon trail, he was in his element. He made a famous statement here that will always echo the mission of the National Park Service. Keep this great wonder of nature as it now is. The ages have been at work on it, and man can only mar it. Grand Canyon became a national park in 1919. A single mammoth canyon divides the park into a south rim and a north rim. The shortest drive between the two rims is a distance of about 220 miles. The north rim of the Grand Canyon is so different from the south rim in feeling and aspect that it's often difficult to remember that the same canyon separates them. Here on the north rim, we're 1,200 feet higher. The warm seasons are shorter and winters are long and snowbound. Because many north rim views are toward the shadow side of the canyon formations, their shapes sometimes appear to be bolder, and their size even seems magnified. A low sun often brightens only a few cliffs and buttes, isolating them and dramatizing their grandeur. For visitors who are well acquainted with the popular South Rim views, the North Rim offers an entirely new perspective of the canyon. Few hotels can boast a more dramatic location than Gran Canyon Lodge. It's perched directly on the rim of the canyon. Master architect Gilbert Stanley Underwood designed the lodge to give the visitor a unique first look at the canyon. Dense forest and the lodge itself block the canyon from view until the astonishing moment when you step into the sunroom. And there, finally, is the canyon, revealed by the lodge's massive windows. Nearby are the lodge's charming cabin-style rooms. Today, it's hard to believe that the first official government exploration party reported in 1858 that the Grand Canyon region was, quote, altogether valueless. It seems intended by nature that the Colorado River shall be forever unvisited and undisturbed. There are several outstanding overlooks on the North Rim just below the lodge. Bright Angel Point, surely one of the most dazzling views in the entire park, is within a short strolling distance. The developed area of the South Rim, opposite this point, is about 10 miles away. The only direct way to get there is on foot. The full trip down to the river and up the other side is a dusty, strenuous hike of well over 20 miles. For those wanting a slightly less strenuous way to experience the canyon interior, a mule trip down the North Kaibab Trail provides an exciting journey unique to the North Rim. Mules have been used in the Grand Canyon since the 1920s for their strength and stability. The trek into the canyon itself is a thrilling experience. The orange soil and bright green vegetation are a sharp contrast to the South Rim's arid landscape. The riders thread their way into the canyon. The trail drops down by an extended series of zigzags or switchbacks that reduce the steep descent to an easier grade. New riders may discover some muscles they didn't know they had, and even a chafed spot or two. Bright Angel Point and the area near the lodge are the hubs of sightseeing activities at the North Rim. Here at Point Imperial, we're about 25 miles northeast of Grand Canyon Lodge. The most conspicuous landmark in this area is a thumb-shaped spire called Mount Hayden. It's composed of hard sandstone standing on a base of softer red shale. The North Rim's abundant wildlife is a special pleasure for visitors. North Rim visitors are usually most interested in the famous long-eared kaibab squirrels. They're found here on Arizona's Kaibab Plateau and nowhere else. These handsome mammals are easily recognized by their characteristic long, tufted ears and bushy white tail. And speaking of ears, those of the mule deer are pretty distinctive too. It's often possible to glimpse these wary animals in early morning or late evening. Wild turkeys can frequently be seen in the meadows and forests of the North Rim. Cape Royal is the name of the tip of a long plateau that juts far out into the canyon. The most eye-catching feature at Cape Royal is Angel's Window, a natural arch. Erosion has caused an opening in a limestone fin that projects out from the rim. A trail leads along the crest of the fin to a vantage point that gives you a real top-of-the-world feeling. Late in the day, it's pleasant to return to the lodge to enjoy the special magic of sunset at the North Rim. At these times, the air itself often seems to turn golden, and Grand Canyon becomes a personal experience. Some of the most beautiful colors of fall can be seen in the aspen forests on Grand Canyon's North Rim. In autumn, their leaves turn a vibrant yellow, and it's a perfect place to take a chilly afternoon stroll. Winter at Grand Canyon is a quiet time of year. The elevation is 7,000 feet, and when a winter storm comes through, the weather changes dramatically. Summer crowds are long gone, and only a hardy few remain. Elk continue to browse, unconcerned with the snow. They're the largest mammal found at the Grand Canyon. A bull elk can weigh up to 800 pounds or more. Like deer, they shed their antlers in winter. With fresh snow on the rim, the canyon is transformed. From glorious vistas to the river far below, the Grand Canyon inspires us all. It has been formed over the millennia and is ever-changing. We are lucky to have seen a small snapshot of the canyon's story. The canyon calls out to those hungry for adventure, reflection, or renewal of the spirit. And in everyone's travels, the Grand Canyon story is an epic phenomenon.